Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
So, every story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And Dave will tell you the beginning is hard. The middle usually writes itself. But the ending? That's a tough one.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Dave and Roger Hamer, photojournalists from Nebraska. They have a combined 74 years in television news. We are honored to have both of them here with us today. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Roger, we're going to start with you. In the spirit of the industry, 30-second soundbite about this gentleman sitting next to you.
That's going to be tough. 30 minutes, you say? Well, I'm very fortunate that I've had not only a great father, but a great mentor and a great example to follow in this industry that I never really felt I was going to get into when I was much younger. But he's been supportive of me every step of the way, mentoring me early in my career, scolded me and taught me when we went to the workshop in Oklahoma where he was co-chair for 25 years plus, I believe. 25. And it's just been, I can't even begin to tell you how many things I've learned from him, not only about being a journalist, but about being a good human being too.
Thank you. Very nice introduction. Dave, every story, beginning, middle, and an end, yours no exception. Tell us what it was like to grow up near Wayne, Nebraska.
Okay. I was born and grew up on a farm and went to a country school, little one-room country school with 8 classes, 1 room, and 1 teacher. And how she handled all that, I have no idea. But it was a good education. From there I graduated from Wayne Prep High School in Wayne. Signed up for business administration at Wayne State, and then got a job in photography, local studio. And that led to eventually doing local little stories for Sioux City Television. I was a stringer. I prefer to call myself a correspondent, but I was a stringer. I'd shoot 100 feet of film and put it on the bus, Sioux City, and usually the next evening I'd sit in my living room and watch it come back in black and white on a little 17-inch screen with my wife, who said, you know, you could do this. And by golly, the station hired me, and that's where I started out in Sioux City, Iowa, covering everything. First week I was on the job, I covered a house fire in which the gentleman was killed. And I shot the story, came back with a handful of notes, gave them to my news director, and he said, okay, write me a minute's worth. Well, I was not a writer, I was a photographer. Oh. But fortunately I had a good teacher at Wayne State who had imbued certain things in me. Mm-hmm. Keep it short, keep it interesting. And that's pretty much what I tried to do the rest of my career, is keep it interesting, keep it short, and of course factual, up to date, and fair and honest.
You really hit the ground running with all of this, Dave. What was your favorite part about getting into this particular business? What really kept you going with it?
Well, just getting into it, because it was new, it was a novelty. We're talking about 1953, and it was brand new. There were only 2 stations in Omaha at the time, and they'd only been on the air a very short period. And it was an interesting field that I observed everybody else doing, and I thought, as my wife said, I could do that. Mm-hmm. And the lure of having the freedom to go out on my own and cover a story and shoot the film and edit the film and sometimes narrate it on tape and then see it broadcast. And the lure was for me, non-routine. It was different every day. Walk into the newsroom in the morning and you have no idea where you'll go, what you'll do, or when you'll go home. And thank goodness for my wife who put up with all this nonsense for all those years.
Wow, true pioneer. You had several significant firsts, and those firsts really impacted the industry. When I talk about significant firsts, Dave, what comes to mind for you that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, I think the transition from very, very basic television reporting, a person in front of a camera reading copy. When I started, that was the form. I think the first real step after that was having cameras on the street, film cameras on the street, with sound recording, so we could take the camera to the story. We could interview the newsmaker on the scene, rather than having to bring them into the station. It was more spontaneous coverage, I think more honest coverage, and again, this was all the early days in black and white. A major step was when we got into color. I was working for Channel 3 here in Omaha. They had color cameras, studio cameras, for some time before we got into film. And film was really a step up as far as we were concerned. Not that the content was any different, but the presentation was. Having a newscast all in color rather than a person on camera in color and then a black and white film.
Very cool. All right, now, from what I've read, what I've gathered about you, you could have easily gone on to the networks in terms of all the places you had been and all the experiences that you had had. Tom Brokaw, Chuck Roberts, those guys went on. You opted out, though. Why?
Well, I looked into a couple of possibilities that were rather attractive. Not in Omaha, they were larger cities. But on consideration, Verla and I, my wife and I, looked at the entire situation. We're very happy to be here in the Midwest, first of all, in Omaha. We had kids in school and Boy Scouts and all those things. We had a real connection with Omaha. But I think beyond even that, as important as that was the idea that being in a smaller station, in a smaller market, I pretty much had that freedom I mentioned where I could do the whole thing myself and not have the restrictions of being only a writer, only a camera person, or only an editor, whatever. I could do the whole works. And that always appealed to me right up until the day of retirement, was the fact that I don't want this to sound the way it will, but I had control of everything I covered because it would come out the way I saw the story.
Well, and you're going to be held accountable for it. So
Absolutely.
there's something to be said for that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
A paycheck.
Yeah. There, and
Or a
Rod-
pink slip, one of the two. Yeah.
Come on, ever the optimist, Roger.
Right.
So, but part of the benefit, obviously a great benefit for having him stick around, was for you to be able to watch your father in action, right? So
Sure.
when did you know, Roger, that you wanted to walk in his footsteps?
It never was an intentional step. It was, I just kind of fell into it in a way. When I came to UNO, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I started taking broadcasting classes, and I started taking journalism classes, and I learned how to write, and I took about every class that you can imagine. And when I went to get my degree, it was kind of like, well, you got too many here, and you don't have enough there, so I had to take a few extra classes. But I'm glad I did, looking back, that I took those classes, because I learned a lot of basic foundational things about journalism that I probably wouldn't have learned anywhere else. And I'm glad that he and Mom decided to stay here, because I think it would have been a totally different scene had we gone somewhere else when I was much younger. I don't think I'd be in TV today.
Interesting.
And I just kind of fell into it. I loved writing, and I started taking pictures, and I'd watch what he was doing. And actually, I was working in newspapers, and I had applied at Channel 3. A friend of mine said, "Hey, there's an opening, go and apply." And I did 3 interviews at Channel 3, and then I got a phone call when I was working for the Papillion Times newspaper, doing Deadline in the darkroom, developing photos, I got a call saying, hey, we want to hire you here at Channel 3. I said, oh, great. Can you start in an hour? And I said, can you give me 2? So I got done. I got done with deadline at the Papillion Times and put in my 2 weeks, walked out the door, and then I worked those 2 jobs at the same time. Plus I was working up here at the student newspaper. I was playing in a band, and I slept a couple hours, maybe a month, and going to school too. So it just kind of, things just kind of happened. And I had a lot of good support from my coworkers. You know, Roseanne was one at Channel 3 at the time. And Roger Pry, I learned a lot from him, just talking with him and just watching and observing. And when I started out, he was over at 6, and we'd get together at one of the stations and have lunch in an edit booth. And I'd show him some of my stuff. And he'd say, well, this is good. He was always very supportive, you know. And I learned a lot about analyzing video and stories in that way, because he would offer little insights and tips here and there, and help me become a better journalist and a better storyteller.
I wanted to bring that up. That takes quite a talent, and I want you to talk about this a little bit in terms of going from print to broadcast. It's a different type of, you still have the photo as your basis, something to which you write.
Yeah,
but
you went from one photo to 30 frames a second.
Right.
You know, and that was you invented it, so it probably wasn't a big deal for you. but I was the king of like the 3 or 4 second shot when I got into video and into TV. It's like, why are your clips so short? Well, I got the shot I needed. Well, no, you didn't. It's supposed to be a little bit longer than that. It took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah, I would say that transition would have been interesting. I think sometimes people hear, oh, you're a writer, and so you can write to anything or about it. And that's not necessarily the case. They're different mediums.
Well, they are, but even especially today, because of the way that media has kind of crossed over. And you know, there are radio people that carry cameras. You know, and with the internet, everybody puts their stuff out on the web, so you have to write stories for the web, which is more of a print style.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think the transition was all that tough.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe I was just writing more of that style anyway, because I was always kind of a magazine style writer.
Yeah, working
anyway.
your way into that. And it's a great segue into the changes in the industry. You've mentioned a few of them, and you've even brought some props for us. Talk about the most significant changes in the industry.
Well, the immediacy of having picture and sound on a scene out to the masses. It's a curse and a blessing. It's a blessing in the fact that we can be live in seconds from a scene. Where you were talking about, you'd see your stuff on TV the next day. You know, we could be on TV immediately. Yeah. The problem with that is that the information chain hasn't changed. To gather information in the field, the police still have to do what they have to do. Rescue people still have to do what they have to do. So we're kind of at the mercy of, what do you see where you are at? And sometimes that can turn into a little more, here's what I think is going on, then here's what I see is actually going on. Okay. And I think that we kind of get into a little, well, that's not entirely accurate now. Where you were saying earlier that we get out in the field, it's more accurate. I think that that's true, but the possibility of having some information a little distorted or maybe even incorrect based on what you're seeing, because you don't have official confirmation of things. Right. So we have to be very careful when we're out in the field live to do that. And the cameras are a little bit different. You saw some of the stuff that he was toting around. This isn't much bigger than what he was toting around, but it's got everything with it. I've got a wireless microphone, a shotgun microphone. It's HD camera, and it runs on cards instead of film. So there's your film.
Wow.
I wish I had that when I was young.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. And
you can do, how many minutes can you do on that?
I could probably, I have 2 cards in there. I could do about 226 minutes.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Which is totally different than when I started out. Film was on its way out, but that was still being used. And film was, you know, you shoot very sparingly.
100 feet of film was 2 minutes and 35 seconds.
Wow.
That's
He's
just
got
crazy.
200, how many?
226 minutes. Yeah.
Good night.
But the danger of that is you turn the camera on and you just let it go and go and go and go
Yeah.
and go,
Yeah.
and the best stuff never gets on the air.
Yeah.
Roger, I understand you brought your live truck with you today too.
You know, the live truck.
truck,
That's
right.
yeah. We used to have to back a satellite truck up. This is my live truck now. This
my
runs
gosh.
off of cell phone technology, where even somebody like I can operate this, where you just push one button, and it powers up, and it'll tell you the signal's there. I plug my camera into a cable, turn the camera on, call the station, they dial me up, and we're on the air.
Wow. We have a photo of you with 2 cameras.
Oh yeah, that was
want you
one
to
of
talk-
these was involved here.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
This was when the M's Pub fire happened down in the old market. Was that, what, 3 years ago now? Something like that? It was very cold, I remember that.
You look cold,
Yeah,
Roger.
yeah. I had my Cubs hat on, big Cubs fan. One of my cameras is hooked up for live shots, and the other was to do my regular story for the day. That was by choice, really, not by design.
So
I made the choice to do that instead of being told, because I was told, we want you to be live the whole time during this,
Yeah.
but you also have to shoot a story. So I kind of borrowed somebody else's camera.
There's something to be said, though, when you talk about when you got into this industry and how it has changed.
It's-
Just looking
yeah,
at that
it's
photograph,
phenomenal.
were you pretty go with the flow, Roger, when all these changes were coming down the pike?
Really didn't have much choice,
Yeah.
actually, because, you know, videotape had just started. I worked in the 70s for relief in developing film at Channel 3. So I had some experience with film, and I knew that the processing took like 45 minutes for color to do. But then when videotape came in, it was, well, you got a 18-minute cassette, you know, and so you can kind of shoot a little bit more, and then you can erase it. I mean, with film, you use it once and it's done.
Right.
But with tape, you could just erase over it. That's probably was a big change. And then after that, when everything went computerized, I mean, everything we do is computerized now. We just dump it in the computer and edit it from there, and everybody can get it. I don't have to, hey, here's the tape, you know.
Yeah.
Promotions doesn't have to come and bug me in the middle of my editing process to get some video. It's mind-boggling how much it's changed, and I don't know where it's going to go next. Where can it go next?
Who knows?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to find out 50 years from now what's happening.
We'll just
Absolutely.
have to stick around and see how this story ends.
There you go. There you go.
Beginning, middle, end. Right?
Well, that's
Yeah.
right. yeah.
And there are other folks out in the field doing what you're doing, Roger.
Right.
We want to put up a photo, and you kind of tell us who we're looking at here.
Oh, these are my contemporaries. On the guy I got my arm around is my buddy Andrew Osaki. He's a photographer for Channel 7 in Lincoln. One of the best guys you'll ever meet. On my right is Keith Gentrup. Keith and I worked at a film processing plant in the mid-'70s, so I've known Keith for a long time. And we call him Captain Midnight because he works all the overnight shifts. Bob Gillum, this was his retirement party. You know, one of the nicest guys ever. You know, all-time good guy. And my classmate, we went to UNO together, John Turbis. We just kind of got together and thought we'd get the old fogies together and snap a shot. So there's probably 175 years of experience in that photo right there. In Omaha television.
When you think about all of that, and this is probably an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Dave, most memorable story that you covered and why?
Well, I have to mention the Starkweather story because that was such a monumental thing that staggered the whole Midwest. Incredible. And that was pretty early in my career. That was in 57, 58, 59. Yeah. And talk about changes. That was film, no cell telephones, nobody be in touch with the station. You're out there, and you have to go someplace and find a phone so you can call in a report. You have to drive back to Omaha to turn in the film. And it was a real challenge to cover a story on that basis. So that's memorable only because it was a big story. Everybody covered it. For personally, the things that I think of the most was working in Vietnam. I was sent there by KMTV in 1962, very early on. And then I wound up my career in '91 in the Middle East on the first Gulf War. working out of Saudi Arabia. And those are the two, they sort of bookend my career. Vietnam was very early. Persian Gulf was right at the very end. And so I think about those. But in between there were just any number of stories that I really enjoyed covering that I think had some permanence. I did a lot of documentary work when I was at Channel 6. I'll get them right.
Yeah, you've been everywhere, so why not, you've worked at all of them. So.
True. I had a lot of freedom to do things there, and Steve Murphy, the late Steve Murphy, my news director, and Ann Peterson, my assignment editor, let me do a lot of things where I'd be gone for days or maybe a week or two. Most memorable there, I did a series of 3 stories I called Great Americans. These were half-hour documentary programs. The first one involved a great American, Crazy Horse, Native American, who of course was the winner at the Little Bighorn with General Custer. The second one was on a woman who came here when she was a child from Europe, an immigrant. Went through Ellis Island. We took her back to Ellis Island, by the way. She was 84 years old, and walked her through that whole process. And the third in the series was on a World War II soldier, Roger McCarthy, who landed on Omaha Beach, obviously Omaha Beach, Omaha, Nebraska, Omaha Television, on D-Day. We took him back to France to go through that series. The interesting thing about that one, Gary Kerr and I did this series. When we interviewed him at the very beginning, he didn't talk very much about his exploits. His wife was listening in, and she said, you've never told me these stories. Aha. Gary Kerr says, we got to take her along to France and have him tell her the story, which we did. And I think it was a significant thing that we did. And another story that really stands out in my mind. Real glad I did it.
And a great guy too, Roger McCarthy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I had the opportunity to interview him on the 50th anniversary. I think you went for the 40th.
40th,
right?
yeah.
And he told me some things that he never told you.
I know.
Which was extremely interesting. We went to his house and interviewed him there, and he had his memorabilia out, his service photo, and some things. And it's interesting because his wife let me in and went and sat down, and she walked away and shut the door and just left us together. And he was the most open. I mean, this was when the vets were just starting to talk about their experiences.
Yeah.
And it was just mind-boggling. The man was just, I mean, how did he ever survive?
Yeah.
He told me that he remembered crawling through, as he's in the water, he'd lost all his equipment, and he's crawling forward inch by inch, and machine gun bullets are popping up around him. And then all of a sudden he saw tennis rackets and beach balls and volleyballs floating past him. And he thought, what a surreal scene this is. And he figured what happened was that the landing was so goofed up that some supply ships had been hit by mines or artillery, sunk, and their equipment that was due to be on Normandy Beach a week later were floating across as the battle's going on. And he said it was just the strangest thing I ever saw. He said, I never thought I'd get out of there alive. The last thing I kept saying is, my poor mother, my poor mother. It was just so powerful. And he was a very good interview, very honest, and just a great person.
Well, and in the minutes we have remaining, I want to talk a little bit about you gentlemen being on the receiving end of those powerful stories. I mean, it has to hit you at some point that, oh my gosh, they had a story to tell and they chose me, or I just happened to be the one with whom they could share that. Briefly talk about how that feels, Roger.
I think when the tornado hit the Little Sioux Boy Scout camp some years back, I was up there and I was kind of just bouncing around from small town to small town, and I stopped at a gas station, and there was a gentleman filling up his van, and I just started chatting with him, and I said, boy, that's just terrible what happened at that camp. And he said, you want to talk to my grandson? He's in the van. And I'm like, sure, if he's up to it. And he came out, and he was just, it was, what he was saying was just so chilling that you can't help but feel.
Yeah.
You can't help but feel. And in a sometimes impersonal business, one thing I did learn from this gentleman here on my right, take time with your sources. I'm not a big fan of go in, give me some sound, give me some pictures, I'm out. I will spend much more time. I don't take the camera right away up to somebody. I'll take some time to get to know them first, and get them so they can know me too.
Oh, it's
and
all,
feel comfortable.
It's the whole trust
exactly.
issue. And so, all right, we have like a minute. That's it. 30 seconds. What's next for you, Dave? 30 seconds.
What's next for me?
What's next for you?
Well, I'm retired. I can't ask for anything better than that. I'm enjoying life.
Okay.
We're not taking our show on the road?
No,
All right.
I don't think so.
This is about as roady as you get. So
I do a little writing just
Okay.
for fun, and I send it out to a couple dozen, 7 or 8 dozen friends.
Okay.
And I get feedback from them, and I
It's
enjoy
pretty good
that.
stuff.
Awesome.
Too.
And Roger, real quick, what's next for you?
Someday retirement,
Okay.
so I can live the life of Riley like my friend here.
I want to thank you both so much for being here. This was quick, and I figured it would be. Thanks for sharing your time, your expertise, and your stories. I am very humbled sitting in your presence. Thank you for everything that you have done for this industry and for this community.
you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
having us.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
And thanks to our students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course to our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at the Joslin Art Museum as seen through the lens of Rong Shishang, a senior here at UNO. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.